talking about SNL, the history, the mysteries, and all the hot impressions in between, breaking down all the numbers as well. In your favorite sketches with special guests, it's on the Saturday Night Network.
Yes, welcome on in, everybody, to the final roundtable of season 50. My name is Jon Schneider from the SNN. So excited to be back with you for the first time after the SNL season to recap everything that happened during this incredible long season 50 of Saturday Night Live. We are, of course, here as a presentation of LateNighter.com, and we have a great panel here with us as well. So let's bring in the man who has been doing this with me every single year after the season is over. That is Rich Tackenberg. Rich, how are you?
I am good. As I say every year, that this podcast is both my favorite podcast to do and my least favorite podcast to do. Love looking back, but it's also an acknowledgement that I'm going to now crawl into a hole and disappear until the fall of next year.
That's very true. You do hibernate throughout the summer, but why is it your least favorite to do? Is it the pressure of it all?
No, it's the acknowledgement that the season's over. We don't get to talk about next Saturday. So it's like, oh, right, that's it. Another one's in the book. And it's also 50. We've been doing this for a long time. It's crazy to think how much time has passed, but it's great. I love looking back with joy.
Yeah, the beginning of the season feels like forever ago, but also I can't believe it's over. So it is crazy to be talking about this where we are right now. And I wouldn't think about doing the show without the great Kirstin Rajala. So Kirstin, how are you?
I'm great. I hear you, Rich. Like, when are we going to talk next after this? I will say I spent, 3 hours speed watching so many sketches from this season that I came away feeling really good about it. So not a newsflash, but I really did enjoy it. So my feedback will largely be positive. But wow, it zipped by. And to think that Gene Smart, that was episode 1. It feels like forever ago. We've been talking about season 50 for years, and it's done. We're here.
Yeah, really crazy stuff. There's so much to talk about here tonight. I can't wait to dive in. And of course, so glad to have Rachel Chang on the podcast with us tonight. Rachel, how are you?
I'm so excited to be here. I mean, what a season it was. As you guys have both said, it was both the first episode seems so long ago, but yet also sped by. So many highlights. I think it's just been a year in news, a year in politics, and there was so much fodder and just cast members gelling and news on and off screen for everyone. I think it was really a celebratory 50th season, and I'm excited to dig into it.
Yeah, when we started the season, we said this is the biggest season in SNL history, and it is an amazing time to be a fan of Saturday Night Live, to be able to live through what we saw during season 50. So we're going to do the show tonight in 2 parts. Part number 1 is going to be a recap and discussion about how they did when it came to its 50th season. What are the moments we're going to remember? How are we going to feel about this season in the long run? And then we'll transition over to our award show portion of the podcast, where we will talk about our favorite moments from each section of the show. So very excited to recap this season and talk about how they ended up handling everything we saw here during the 50th year of Saturday Night Live. Rich, I'm just having a minor internet problem, so I'm going to jump off and fix that. And I'm going to send it to you, if you don't mind, just telling the listeners how you feel about this 50th season overall. Let's get some thoughts from you.
You got it. All right. Bye, John. We can talk about John while he's gone. I'm so happy. God, this is it. All right. New format. Now we're just starting. Sketches alphabetically. Let's go. Yeah. I mean, obviously such an interesting season for all of us, because it's like you want season 50 to feel special. You want it to feel unique. You want it to feel timeless. And also, we got a show to do. We got 20 episodes to do of just comedy, regular, making fun of pop culture, making fun of current events, comedy to do. And it's a fine line to walk. And then you throw in an election, which is always an atypical year for SNL. So you've got those 2 things going. And I have a couple of thoughts, but I'll start, and I want to hear, because I want to hear what everyone says, is I thought that they really balanced the obligation of season 50 well with just doing 20 good episodes of television. So I think you had a lot of stars, you had a lot of moments, you had a lot of timelessness leading up, but we also, I did not feel like the show suffered from the kind of extra homework assignment of acknowledging season 50. So I felt like they balanced the season really well. So for me, it was a win.
Kirstin, what about you? How do you feel about how SNL handled the season, given all of the extracurricular activity that went on during it?
I agree. I can only imagine the talent booking team trying to decide who's on the show versus who's on the special, who's on both. There are going to be some kind of behind the scenes things that we'll never know about that influence those decisions. Ratings are going to influence it. The Oscar winners are going to influence so many things. It's a big chess match of putting people in the right place. And I do think, Rich, I agree that they balanced that quite well, where we had, some repeat hosts. We had some new hosts, some that did better than others. We saw some epic music performances. And then you had the special itself, which was our Super Bowl Oscars all rolled into one extravaganza that Jon has great new memories of too.
This is true. I do have a lot of fond memories of this season. So, Rachel, what about you? Any overall thoughts about how you're feeling about season 50 now that we're over a week out?
Absolutely. There were so many wonderful moments. I feel like overall the cast really started to gel. It seems like even just the social media sharing more behind the scenes moments and seeing their interactions together, doing so many interviews celebrating the 50th together, finding out about Heidi and Eggo's friendship and how they're really best friends, Offset too, and like really getting to know everyone and understanding how the show operates, I feel like was a whole other layer in celebrating this, the publicity that went into that. I feel like there was so much hype coming in, even going to the Olympics to hype up the season. There was so much that, like, on a global scale, even. And then within that, there were still times for really niche things to grow, like Dan Bula's series and the cartoons, things that we hadn't seen in a few years. There was so much going on, yet there was still very granular stuff for the fans. Here's where I'm going to get a little bit on the negative side.
No, we need some balance.
All that said and all that hype, I will say if you took a list of all the hosts of the last few seasons, I would say I was disappointed overall because I thought we were going to get one after another of like big A-list names. I thought we'd be getting like the Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, like the really big, like Jennifer Aniston, Jennifer Lopez, The Rock, like really Beyonce, Oprah, I don't know, like really big
Very
A-list
2000s
names.
of you.
Okay, I know, but like very like marquee names that anyone off the street would know. And I thought that we would also throw in like an athlete that like LeBron or somebody that like I thought we'd have every like even a politician, just kind of a mishmash of everything at the biggest and best A-list names. And to have some people that were a little bit more, I don't want to say not A-list, because like, for instance, we'll get to how much I appreciate the Nate Bargatze episode, and he is the biggest touring comedian, but he probably isn't as much of a household name. So I think I was just, but that said, I love that episode, so we'll get to all that. But I think I was just a little bit surprised that the names weren't, like, I think they poured it all into the special. I almost thought that level of bookings would be throughout the season. And so when I pull back and look at a big picture after all the hype and how the whole season was supposed to be celebratory, I am surprised we started with the Gene Smart. I am kind of surprised by some of the week-to-week bookings. It was almost just a regular season of wonderful bookings, but not the whole seasons. I don't know. I guess the whole level wasn't elevated as much as, maybe it was just my level of expectations too.
Yeah, and that's totally fine because I think that you can't help it, right? When all the hype and buildup starts last year, like going back to a year ago in that Jake Gyllenhaal episode where he starts singing about how, the one before the 50th, the 49th in his monologue and starts hyping it up, like right away, you start to get chills and you start thinking about what are the possibilities. And we did so many shows here of like, well, could we get the original cast to host? Could we do this? And there was obviously the natural progression of like, hey, we can't do all of these things. What is the best way that we can package this throughout the season to give you our best? And I think that they did do part of that in the having alumni show up for the election cycle, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Having a couple of alumni host, obviously really putting everything they could into that special that we had in February, bringing back Mike Myers after that. Like they definitely will, this definitely felt like they honored their history throughout the year. And I think, Rebecca Schwartz and the entire team who does the booking for the host and musical guests, I think they did a pretty good job given the circumstances, because it's also a lot of pressure, right? It's not just, if you're Tom Cruise, who's never hosted SNL before, and you're thinking about maybe hosting the show, like, do you want to host during the 50th season? Like maybe it's too many eyeballs on you. So there's a lot of considerations, I think, to think about here. I'll say overall for my thoughts on season 50, and then we'll dive into the nitty gritty of it all, is that I think there's two ways to look at it. Number one is I'm always going to remember all of the, like I said, extracurricular activity that impacted this season. This being an election cycle and the 50th season just had this like thing where these two amazing extra things that you wouldn't normally get in SNL season kind of just like collided with each other and distracted from a regular season of the show. I still think we got a lot of great moments from our cast, but I think the cast certainly got overshadowed this season. And I think in the long run will probably get overshadowed. And because of that, I can't help but lump this season in with season 48 and 49, which I think in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, we're going to look back at this sort of mini era post Kate, 80, all of the people who left after 47, Pete, where this is sort of the ensemble era of the show, where there's no one star who truly broke out and became the face of Saturday Night Live. There was a lot of really good to even great cast members who all had their moments once every couple episodes. And I'm curious now, post 50, if that will change now that there aren't all of these things impacting the season. So those are my overall thoughts on the show. I would love to dive into the individual aspects that made this season what it was. So let's start all the way back in the beginning. The first piece of breaking news that we really got was the addition of 3 new cast members to replace some departing cast members. So we found out that Punky Johnson was not asked back to the show, or, sort of like a mutual thing that she departed. Molly Carney, they departed the show. In comes 3 new cast members in Ashley Padilla, Emil Joachim, and Jane Wickline to join this cast here. And Rich, I would love to know from you, now that we saw these rookies for 20 seasons, how do you feel like they impacted season 50 and potentially the future of the show?
It's weird to think that, like, just looking back at the season, especially the second half of the season, that Ashley Padilla, that this is her first semester on the show and that she's only a featured player, because I kept marking sketches that I was liking that she was a huge part of. And I was like, that sort of just struck me. I think Jane was an excellent addition as far as just the tone and color. And I think Emil has had a good moment at Weekend Update. I don't know that I've yet seen a sketch that's broken him out yet. So I thought they did great. Again, as I said at the beginning of the season, I think it comes at the expense of the cast is too large. And to exactly, I think, exactly 48, 49, why are there no big cast members breaking out? Well, because they get so little screen time. And as we saw in this, well, I'll save it. I'll save this cast overall. But I will say, as far as just talent, the nice thing is sometimes in years past, someone comes on and in their first season, they really don't make any mark. It's not till year 3 or 4 that 80 suddenly becomes 80, or like where this year, I feel like we got a really strong flavor. And I feel like the show in general has been doing a better job at sort of giving a platform to the featured players in year 1. So I was very happy with it. And I think they're all great.
Yeah, and I should also mention Chloe Trost, who was also not asked back after last season, so didn't mean to leave out Chloe. But basically, we had 3 out and 3 in. So, Kirstin, for you, seeing these 3 rookies and their impact on season 50, do we feel like the cast is in a better place today than we were 1 year ago?
They are great ensemble players. I'm a huge fan of Ashley. I think she does seem like she's been on the show forever. She seems to have, presume she's fit in so well and does seem like, yeah, Rich, she's been there for more than 1 year, and I can see a long career if she wants to stick around and if that works out in her favor, because she is a classic SNL cast member, in my opinion. Emil, I agree, had some great Weekend Update moments. I think he's a great addition to the cast. I love that we've got some diversity, and people aren't putting on beards and pretending to be all of the characters that he has been portraying. And then Jane, I think a bit of a 10-1 pick almost I'd compare it to, but she's put out some great things. And you're right, she's had some great opportunities by way of the kind of Weekend Update pieces and even Baby Shoe. Like they've really created some things around her. So it's very intriguing to me to see who is back by choice versus who is not. And if it includes these three, I'd like to think that they all deserve to be there, but I think this is not a betting place because it's becomes very much a wild card situation when it comes to these cast members. But as members of an ensemble, I think they all fit really nicely.
Yeah, and we'll save the betting for Wednesday night, where we will have our final by the number show of the season and talk through some of the analytics of all of this. But Rachel, just from the naked eye test, how do you feel about these three rookies being added to the cast for season 50?
I have been I've been cheering on the newbies so much, starting with the Longfellow Hernandez Walker group. Those three, I was just obsessed with, just kind of rooting for them, almost like the stage mother they don't really want or know they have. Queen, like, come on, you got to get on. And I think that they introduced that group with Molly so well when they did that sketch or that pre-tape where I believe that Colin wrote it, where it was introducing the four of them, and really with Keaton at the end and Molly being left out, ironically. I wish they did something like that at the beginning to kind of let us get to know them a little bit better. But as echoing both what Rich and Kirstin said, I think what this is going to sound the opposite, but Ashley fit in so well that it's almost like we didn't notice that she was there at first, because she was just so seamlessly in scenes with Ego and Chloe and Heidi and just holding her own. Like there was no hesitancy. There's no nerves. She looked like she'd been there for decades. I mean, not literally, but like she just was such a pro. And obviously with her past, with her sketch past, she was groomed for this. She was the perfect, ideal person we needed for this. Jane, for all intents and purposes, is not my demo in any way, but I was just so intrigued by her from the beginning. I just was so excited to see what she would do. I felt like she represented a new generation that I may not relate to, but I was excited that they were pulling somebody that may not be your traditional SNL cast member and giving her a chance, and just getting her on an update for, I believe, 3 features was, I think, very, I'm glad that the show allowed that, because it might not have been more traditional playing another character that we're used to on Update. And to let her sing her own songs too, I thought was really a wonderful kind of new, fresh take to bring into the show. And Emil, I mean, I will say, when I initially heard the 3 names, I was a little disappointed. I was hoping there would be another Black or another Asian cast member, but I'm so glad Emil's there and speaking out about his about race and being an immigrant child. And I'm just so grateful he's there and not holding back, and really becoming who he is, playing these characters, whatever the reputation may be of the characters that he sometimes plays. He is just going all in, and I'm just, again, stage mothering all 3 of them too.
Yeah, I was super excited about all 3 coming into the season as well. I think I'll go in the other order, and I'll say that, Jane, for me, I was the highest on in terms of like bringing that quirky energy coming into the season. And just frankly, like I just didn't get to see her branch out from what she felt comfortable in for season 1. So I'm very curious if she is given a longer leash, if we're going to get more of that to see where she fits in the show, because I just didn't see that through year 1. I do like that they're trying. I do like that they're going for the next generation of fans. And if Jane is big on TikTok, then by all means, like, let's try it. But, again, not enough there in season 1 for me to fully say, like, this is going to be a successful experiment. Emil, definitely did not know what to expect as a stand-up, because that's just where we've gone for the last few years with hirings. And it's been a little bit of a mixed bag as far as like how successful they can integrate into the SNL formula. But with Emil, I really feel like that first half of the season, super strong utility player, kind of hit a little bit of a roadblock at a certain point and then found his groove again towards the end of the season. And if you go to that finale with Scarlett Johansson and you see Colin Jost bring Scarlett some flowers and starts kissing her on stage, look at Emil's face. It's one of the funniest things. And it is a little bit of an indication, because Rich always likes to, mention that the good nights are where you get to see the mask off and you get to see who they really are. You could see like Emil just blending in so well with the cast, having some fun up there. I think he's going to be around a long time. So really good potential for Emil Joachim. And then like, what else is there to say about Ashley Padilla, who, I was so excited that they hired her because she came from the Groundlings. And I always really just like find that people who have that sketch performing background just appeal to me. Like they do so many interesting things on the show. And I feel like in all of the small moments this year, she hit grand slams. In the big moments this year, we didn't see them. And that's where I'm holding my breath right now, being like, she had this amazing update piece that was like my thing that I fell in love with. But I would love to have a moment at the start of season 51 with Ashley where I'm like, everyone watch this sketch. This is the Ashley sketch that everyone's going to remember, where she starts to take over the show. And I wonder if this wasn't season 50 and there wasn't all these other things going on, if maybe we would have got that sooner. Maybe the progress slows a little bit with everything else going on, but I could not be more impressed with her. One of the best rookies we've seen in a long time. So I am excited about the newbies coming in. I do miss Chloe Trost and all those changes, but yeah, it was great to have them here.
I also just want to shout out that Ashley got writing credits on sketches pretty early on. I believe she had the one in episode 6 and another in episode 8, which is amazing for a rookie.
Yes, definitely. And that, that is the benefit of coming from the Groundlings, right? Where you get to perform your sketches in front of crowds before, and you could just work with another writer and translate them to the SNL formula. So yeah, I love that. And I hope that's where they go more for hiring between 50 and 51, is that they try and find more people from sketch troops. I think it'll be great. Let's talk about the election. So the election was the probably biggest storyline for the general public coming into the season. We had no idea when the season was starting who was going to play who. We found out on episode 1, that Gene Smart premiere, that Andy Samberg was going to be in the mix. Jim Gaffigan was going to be there. We're going to have Maya return as Kamala because, Biden dropped out of the running. He wasn't at the forefront, but we still had Dana Carvey, and Dana, to get him back in the building was just so exciting for me as someone who I consider a top 5 cast member of all time. And then obviously we had Bowen as JD Vance and James as Trump. So a lot of those cold opens at the beginning, Rich, were very centered on like 10 minutes of politics, of what's going on with these, debates, the VP debate we had, how this was all going to come together, culminating in the real Kamala Harris coming on right before the election. How do you feel like the election cycle ended up going for the season now, looking back at it so many months later?
Oh boy, where do you start on this one? So I'm going to put the politics aside, because clearly the election did not go the way that I think that SNL was sort of leading emotionally, having Kamala show up right before. I think that the call that they made, bringing in the heavy hitters, clearly smart ratings, clearly great energy. But to everything we just said, and I said this at the beginning, I know that I'm the outlier on this one. I think it was a huge mistake for the institution of Saturday Night Live, because you sidelined the cast for the first 10 minutes of the show. And as much as who doesn't love Maya Rudolph? Maya Rudolph's one of the greats, but put Ego in that role. That's where was Ego this season? Where was she? She should have been playing the vice president of the United States running for office. It would have been so much better for the long-term, SNL. You can't be a breakout star if you can't show up until 12 o'clock at night because you weren't in the first half hour of the show. So while I think some of the sketches were funny, and Andy Samberg's one of my favorite, just great additions as standalone pieces, and we were talking about them the next day. They were getting high ratings. So mission accomplished, but I think it very much hurt the show. And I think if you are in that Michael Longfellow, Devin Walker, where you're just trying to get some traction, you take, because remember, not only were those alumni in the cold open, they were taking time away from PDD when Andy wants to do a pre-tape, and you've got Dana Carvey showing up in sketches and taking away. So I really thought it was at the expense of the cast and of the institution of SNL as a star making machine. So I don't think it was smart. That said, I laughed at all the sketches, and at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And boy, they made me laugh. They're very talented people.
Yeah, and I'm sure in 2028, I'm gonna eat my words, but I will say that I didn't mind it for this time just because it was the 50th and it was kind of fun. Like Jim Gaffigan, forget it. I don't know why they did that. But as far as getting Dana and Andy in the building, I think that's part of the season 50 vibe, even though I'm sure those decisions probably had nothing to do with the 50th and they just like going to alumni. But I just think the two converged in a way. Kirstin, for you, how do you feel about the election cycle and how SNL ended up handling that during season 50?
It's funny, Rich, you were saying it hurt the show, and I think you meant it hurt the current cast, right? Because depends what our metric is. Our metric of success in this case is ratings. Your metric seems to be you want the cast to get their moments and you want breakouts. But so I don't think it hurt the show, because I think we all turned in, laughed, etc. But it got broader appeal outside of just regular watchers because, Andy's back, and they've got Jim Gaffigan, who, if you're in Central Casting 101 and you want a funny guy who's America's dad, who's a really just straight shooter, clean comic, Jim Gaffigan. So I didn't even recognize him at first, but it made great sense to me. And now we've kind of forgotten about the real people and Jim Gaffigan. So I think, you also said star making machine. It's just priorities, because we're celebrating stars in Maya Rudolph and in Andy Samberg and in Jim Gaffigan and in Dana Carvey and all these people. It just was, at the expense of the cast. So I personally love cameos. I love that all these surprise guests come on, just waiting for who's going to walk in the door next is one of my favorite things when they get it right. And then all of a sudden you had Mike Myers showing up as Elon in another episode. So I loved it. I do agree that, the cast had opportunities that didn't go their way, but from a business sense, I understand why they did it.
Yeah, it's just interesting how we define what family of the show is at this point. Because, is it somebody who was a former host? Is it just former cast members? I mean, Alec, obviously, Baldwin, he played a couple of people in the season 2. And was very much involved with coming up every single week to play Trump for his first administration. So it just the waters become murky once we start having Jim Gaffigan play, politicians. And then it's all right, let's just pull anyone to come in here. That's not the cast. And that's, I think, the distinction for me. But Rachel, for you, how did you feel about how SNL went about all of these?
I feel like week to week, I really appreciate it because it was so of the moment each week and what news was happening that week. I just watched the last 10 episodes in the last 36 hours again. And it was kind of
wow.
It just, I was trying to study for this. But it was oh my God, I forgot about so much of it, and that's the same case, right? When before the 50th and I went back and watched previous elections, it felt the same way. What are they talking about? You forget about the week to week granular details. So I feel and that is what happens during an election year, right? They are hitting the news of that week and they are addressing those specifics. And now looking back, it's this election obviously didn't go the way most of us thought, or many of us should say thought. So I think that looking back on it also has kind of a hazy lens across all of it. But I agree with what both Kirstin and Rich are saying. It's it took away so much time from the cast members. But if maybe I was looking for that big flag to be waved, this is 50, and like Jon said, this was bringing back all those heavy hitters. But I almost wonder, it's like we knew from episode 1 that Maya was going to be there for the duration until the election. Did it take away from that surprise of anticipation every week? Like, who's going to show up? Who's going to play this? In a way, knowing that, I mean, we had all the little rumors about how many episodes they were contracted to and all that. And then when Dana came back as the church lady, would we have gotten Dana as the church lady if he hadn't been rumored to be contracted to so many episodes? So I think it was like, whatever was happening behind the scenes based on what was happening with the news, it was just every week was a puzzle that they had to check off this contract. They had to check off the news. And overall, they did it. You know, I chuckled every week. I thought the cold opens were some of the strongest of many of the episodes this season. Line by line, a lot of the best jokes of the week, I thought, were within the cold opens. So I think that they still hit it out of the park with all these factors.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, I had a lot of fun with the election cycle. It was so intense when we were in it, but looking back at, towards the end of the season, now looking back at it, I do feel like it was fun on SNL. I thought Dana was fantastic as Biden. Go back to that moment with the ice cream in his hand, just throwing it back. I mean, those are the types of things you get when you get like an all-time legend who understands the game of the show. And it's like, he still got it. So I think that was a great time. Andy, for me, is somebody who I always loved, who had sort of stepped away from being a part of the show when a lot of his castmates would come back. And it just felt refreshing to have someone like him there. I thought Maya's Kamala was way better than when we had seen it in season 46. So I just got to, remind our listeners to go back, if you ever do, to check out how good that was. And I compared the moment of Kamala Harris appearing on the show and meeting Maya Rudolph's Kamala to what Lin-Manuel Miranda did right prior to the first time Trump got elected and saying he's never going to be president. I will say, with months away from it, I don't think it's as bad. Like, I don't think it feels as like wrong to go watch it. There is something nice about having that moment in its, the SNL library, where you also get Amy with Hillary Clinton, you get Kate with Hillary Clinton, you get Tina with Sarah Palin. Like, you have these moments in the history of the show that I think are like kind of fun in retrospect. So I can squint and maybe enjoy it more than I did that week. Rich, do you have any feelings on that?
Yeah, no, to me, I think that, Kamala showing up, I think, was one of the highlights of the cold opens. I mean, regardless of what ultimately happened, the energy, I think that we actually stood during that entire cold open. I don't think I could sit down. It was, and that's the magic you want of the show. Does that magic now translate today? No, I'm watching it with my head in the oven, so I can't hear the acoustics as well. But it doesn't matter, because I'm aware of, like, oh right, Hope, I remember that. That was cute. Those are the old days. But the power. But I am reminded of the power of SNL. When you see that it was. And we all knew it wasn't, it was so rumored but like, you never really know. And I just thought it was great. And so for me, that it holds up as a moment in time, as you said, in the vault.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things that, even though she didn't become president, just, looking at the history of politicians appearing on the show, this is among some really great moments, like including Obama in the cold open, that time, like ripping off the mask and stuff like that. Like, I do think, obviously alternate universe, she becomes president. Like, this moment is very, very cool, but it's still something that's interesting to think about and something I'll always remember from this election cycle. The last major thing I think we do have to talk about here, especially because as the, making the rules here tonight, I'm not going to include anniversary special moments in our picks for our award show, because it's just not canonical to do that. But let's talk about how they handled the entire special, which is something that they've only done 3 times prior in its history, at the 15th, the 25th, and the 40th. And we knew they had some major plans coming in here. So in addition to getting some alumni throughout the season, we also got, Adam Sandler making some appearances, Mike Myers, like we talked about. So they would, feature throughout the season. But the majority of the alumni things that would happen would occur that very special week in February, where we got this homecoming concert on Peacock, saw some of the greatest musical performances in the history of the show get redone on that Friday night. And then our Sunday night, where we had the greatest people to ever walk Studio 8H to come in and perform a lot of their sketches that they did previously, but new versions of them, the 2025 versions of some of these sketches. And, you know, we did a ton of covers that we talking about the special itself. So if you want to go back and watch that, we can get into the specific details about those sketches. For today, though, I would love to know from our panel, we're a few months out from it. Do you think that they did everything right when it came to involving this special in the season? So, Rich, I'll send it back to you. How do you feel like they handled the whole anniversary special of it all? Rich, you're muted, so I just want to make sure we got you.
Sorry about that. The special itself, again, you know, we talked about it extensively, and also it's unfair for me to say, because I'm fairly sure that when they were first conceiving the special, Lauren said to the team, "What will be the special that Rich Tackenberg in Granada Hills, California, will love?" And they built the show around making it for me. So just one of the great nights of the year was watching that live. But it was a bit of a, like, you know, it lived on an island. I mean, we didn't really have a lot of like build up. There wasn't much tease, you know, and I think that I loved it. I think that the ratings were very good. I don't think that they were what everyone had hoped for. And there could have been a little bit of that there wasn't as much kind of integration, especially in the 3 or 4 shows leading up to that. We then had a break. And so, but I thought it definitely felt of a piece. It definitely didn't feel like this thing was like completely separate from the season, and it was like kind of this outlier. It wasn't tonally different. So it worked for me. I don't know if it worked from a marketing perspective the way that they had hoped, although clearly a huge success for NBC. But I thought it worked very well.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the buzz online was incredible when it came to the special, as far as, you know, announcing who the headliners were going to be. That was just, you know, like it felt like we were living through this like magical moment of like, oh my God, it's actually happening. I should also mention the incredible documentaries that we got this season as well in the lead up to the 50th. Questlove's music documentary, potentially the greatest SNL documentary of all time. Like, just truly the work that went into that was unreal. Then we also had those 4 documentaries that appeared on Peacock talking about, you know, more cowbell in season 11 and the audition process, and looking at one of the episodes from season 49. Just some really cool behind the scenes stuff. There was amazing pop-ups that happened throughout New York City, which I'm sure Rachel could talk about as well, seeing all of the incredible things that were there. Just the city transformed. I you know, going to New York in February, you couldn't walk down the street and not see a cab promoting SNL 50. And just, you know, the team that worked so hard on this was just, you know, they could basically do any type of, you know, live special event around the world with the experience that they got with the 50th. So many cool things did happen around that special. Kirstin, how do you feel now, months out, that they did with all of the plans that they had?
Well, I was lucky enough to be in New York in and around the energy of the event itself, because we all got together, a bunch of us, watched from the bar as Jon was on the red carpet. I think they were really smart in creating more programming than just the live special. You know, you've mentioned them all here, but the documentaries, the Questlove, you know, kind of music doc, which I think was incredibly a great move to separate and celebrate the legacy of music and its role in the show as its own entity, and then have someone like Questlove produce that in the epic way that he did, have that live concert, and then also have those documentaries. So they really did check all the boxes when it comes to coverage, the breadth and depth of the show's legacy, so that the night itself really could just be looser and more fun. And it didn't have on its shoulders the burden of representing decades of characters and sketches and cast members and hosts. So I think that was smart, because it allowed the live special to be a little bit breezier and pander a little bit more to both sponsors, to more casual viewers, and to a lot of stunt casting. Hello, Meryl Streep. Which maybe because, is she dating Martin Short? Like, was that what happened there?
I believe
Whatever.
so.
I liked it. So I think all of that was smart, and I agree. Being in the city at that time and seeing, costumes in the windows of the department stores and all the advertising around the city, they made it the spectacle that it is. And I've grown up watching award shows and, Oscars, this, that, and the other. And you think, oh, look at it. It would be fun to be in the audience. I take all of that back. Watching the audience of the music performance and the live show, that is absolutely hands down the seat filler I want to be. It was so many of my favorite people genuinely excited to see other comedians and performers and artists and talented people. I could ride that high for this entire year. That was, to me, the best ever. And John, I feel like you needed to bottle that somehow and sell it. I would buy it because you were
Well,
there.
it's funny because like I always talked about on this podcast how much the 40th anniversary of the show meant to me. And never when I watched the 40th or thought about the 40th did I ever think that I would get to experience the 50th the way that I did. And, Rachel, having you on this podcast really does mean a lot to me because I think that not only are you an incredible journalist, but you're also a really big fan of the show. And if you don't mind me saying, I arrived to the red carpet at the 50th and knowing that I didn't know what was going to happen that night. I knew I was going to get to talk to some people, and it ended up being one of the most incredible nights of my life. But I got to see Rachel on the red carpet, who was invited to hang out at the red carpet because the show wanted to bring fans of the show to the red carpet to be there to just like cheer on the cast members as they were walking down. And it was so cool to like be doing these interviews and seeing like one of my friends over there in the pit and just being like, oh, this was so exciting. I remember talking to the people at SNL and they were like, we wanted all of SNL Twitter here. Like it was also for the fans. So I'd just love to know from your eyes how you feel about that whole weekend now.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to start. I mean, first of all, having been a late in life fan to SNL, I always felt like I never would understand it this well as like just even listening to the podcast as a fan of the podcast. I was like, I could never talk about the show the way that you guys know it inside and out. Since I am a Gen Xer who knows the last 5 years of this show better, I'm a weird anomaly. So when I got that invite through Instagram of all methods, I was like, this has to be fake. It said on there, don't tell anyone. The only person that knew was my mother. Nobody else in my life knew. I was on a trip where I was snowed in. I freaked out. I wouldn't make it back in time. And then I also didn't know what the purpose was because I do kind of straddle this professional and podcast side. Not that this isn't professional, but I do have my journalist side and my fan side for SNL specifically. And I had been working with the team. I did interview Heidi Gardner for the 50th anniversary. So I didn't know if I was being invited through my work side or as a fan. And it wasn't until the night before, until we got an email that said, be ready to take videos and take photos, that I understood why we were there. And I stayed up all night deleting videos from my phone so that I would have space. So I look so tired on the red carpet. But it was just, I mean, I've been covering entertainment for nearly 20 years, and I don't think that anything could ever top this again, because the cross section of people that SNL brought there from every genre of entertainment, from every era of entertainment, and just the surprise of course, the cast members are going to be there. Of course, some of the greatest hosts and musical guests will be there. But then like randomly you just turn and like, I was a big Good Morning America fan growing up, and Diane Sawyer was there. It's just the randomness of the people there that are all there to celebrate this institution. And just now when John was talking about walking around New York City in February, I almost started tearing up. It was just so cheesy, but it felt so special to have any little slice of this. Even being on the podcast just makes me feel so connected, because every single like subway stop would have those screens that they have on there would have SNL 50 bus stops, taxi cabs. Walking into Rockefeller Center, you just felt like you were walking into a part of this moment in time that will never be recreated again. The way they revealed the guest, like you said, and making it part of New York and coming in through New York City, New York, I mean, obviously SNL is such a New York City show, but it felt like New York was celebrating SNL so much during that time. And I did also have the chance to experience the SNL, and get the name right, SNL 50, the Saturday Night Live experience, or it was
Rolls off the tongue.
I think I got that wrong actually, and I should know. I wrote a story on it too. But where they had you walk through, I love immersive theater, and to have immersive theater be the theme of SNL, where they made you the host and like literally somebody's pulling you through each scene. I mean, I'm grateful that I got to cover it, so I got to run through it 3 times. I mean, it was just, I was geeking out every time and seeing little elements, and the props they had there were from every generation. I mean, yes, you had Dick in the Box, but then you also had like Martin's Doctors, that, what was it, from the soda, the seltzer from Martin's Doctor or Dentist from the PDD sketch. That's so granular. So there was just so much there that I was just like, every time there was more and more and more. And talking about spending money, they gave every single person a gift bag that had, I think there were different things, but most of them had a water bottle, pins. They spent so much money on this. They had an equivalent in LA too for, I believe, one day. So they definitely poured and that was 2 or 3 days in New York and at least one day in LA. So they really spent all the money. And like you said, I don't know if the ratings equated the marketing, but boy, did the buzz in New York City.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because like it's not just about the ratings anymore. It's also about the, engagement that fans have. Like obviously there's always going to be, the stands of the show, the people who are obsessed with, different elements of the show. But I think that, what SNL did throughout the 50th weekend and for that experience was, chop down all of the SNL isn't funny anymore types, and just really like push them and be like, no, like this is a great thing to have as a part of your identity, that you're an SNL fan. It's not necessarily like super you can't define yourself in one way just because you're an SNL fan. And I think that like we've built a really cool community over here. It was great to meet a lot of fans of the show throughout that 50th weekend. And my feeling is that, that weekend inspired a lot of people to go back and watch old episodes of this show and become even bigger fans. So let's turn our attention back to this season now that we talked about the 50th and what it meant. And let's go through the individual portions of the season where we will talk about our favorite cold opens, monologues, live sketches, pre-tapes, all of that here. So this is a very interactive portion of the podcast, which means that as our panelists talk about their favorite moments from the season, I definitely want to see the chat and what you guys thought of each aspect of this season as we go through it. So this is what we're going to do here. I'm going to ask you for your favorite, and I put favorite in quotes, parts of these different aspects. Favorite could be different to different people, right? We have different definitions for how we think of favorite. So we'll start with our cold opens here. Obviously cold opens, very election focused throughout the entire season. Then post-election, as we see that, Trump is going to be president again, how they handled that, and James sort of taking over those cold opens for the back half of the season. But Rich, for you, I would love to know if you do have a favorite cold open, and how will you define your favorites throughout this portion of the show?
Well, yeah, I do have a favorite. I thought there were a lot of good cold opens. For this particular one, it really is that thing of, as you said, like what was the most SNL 50 cold open, in that it was both timeless and timely. It spoke to the, the history of SNL while also feeling current. And especially in the cold open, as I always say, to me, when SNL is great, it's not only funny, it's we're being invited to a party that I get to attend. And so for me, I got to go to the Christmas episode. The Five Timers Club was, to me, one of the most fun cold opens in recent history, with 12 cameos, which is insane. I guess Martin Short, he really puts you at 11, but still, it was so fun, so funny. And it had that like with cameos from people from all different eras, and just it was such the magic of the show that to me, even though there was so much more topical fun that we had through the year, that was clearly my favorite.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kirsten, how do you feel about the cold opens this season, and which one stands out to you and why?
It's so hard to pick one. Okay, so I have a couple things here, a couple answers. One is because it's an election year, we pretty much could expect that there would be a Trump and all of the associated people with elections opening. So I liked when they did some unique takes on that. So Ariana Grande's episode, they did the Family Feud version. Paul Mescal's episode, they did the church lady version. Mikey Madison's, they did the signal chat, and it reminded me of, the John Goodman, Molly Shannon, Lewinsky trip, and Saddam Hussein piece, right? Like, so I love when they found different ways to serve up their take on, the topical election content of the week. I do also love in Jon Hamm's episode when Trump interrupted Easter and you saw him. I think JJ was possibly ad-libbing because he was breaking Mikey Day and a few of the other cast members as he was commenting on them and kind of breaking the fourth wall there. That was a good moment. And then I've got to shout out Cecily Strong's cameo and spitting in the mouth of our Pete Hegseth, courtesy of Colin Jost, because, she's just had a baby. We all love her. And she came back so soon after for a really special cameo. If you're making me pick one, I can't. Those are my memorable moments.
Okay, Rachel, what about you? Any favorite cold opens from this season that you want to make sure the listeners are reminded of?
I mean, all of the ones you guys have named have been amazing, but the one that kind of stood out for me was the way they handled the SNL for Trump one, the first post-election one. I just thought starting with a dead serious tone and having the kind of more veteran cast member stand there, and then the transition, having Keaton deliver that transition that we have been with you all along. The way he delivered it was just such a perfect turn. Having Colin pop in, I think, also made it a little bit more special. And both of Colin's little pop-ins from the side of the stage were just so perfect with the lamestream media and spelling out Michael's last name, C-H-E, and then coming back with the January 6th, I don't even know what to call it, Viking costume. Also, a very small bit that I thought was a great another great line that was delivered so well was Marcella when he said, "We should not be on that list." Like the way he was kind of elevated to a more senior cast member in that moment because it was more of the senior folks who had been there longer than him. So I thought he really did wonderful with that. And then bringing in the 3 disgusting new cast members and literally having their real names there and pointing them to their home addresses. I thought there was just so much in there that really made it memorable. Every line was really on par. Even when JJ came in with the hot Jack Trump and then he's frankly my hero, he's going to make an incredible president and eventually king, like it was just so like that's the exact, I couldn't have guessed what tone, like if I were stuck in that room, I would not know what tone to take on that post-election week. And that was the exact right way to hit it. And I'm just so excited that happened.
Yeah, to say it was tenuous would be an understatement about like how SNL was going to handle that night. And I think they did a very good job with that in the end. So this is how I'm going to do this show tonight. I'm going to do something that I think is more in line with what we did for the Everything You Need to Know series that we started to release last summer and will be coming back soon, which is that when we were going through those seasons, we started to categorize old sketches as essential, best, and sleeper. So essential for me would be the sketches that if you just had to briefly hear or talk about a season, what you would need to know to just get why a season is defined by these moments. Best is naturally what I think is the highest quality, and sleeper are ones that I think that maybe not everyone's going to talk about, but we should remind you of. So for me, my essential cold open this season has to be that Kamala Harris with Maya Rudolph cold open. I think that is the one that people will always remember from this season, the image of them together. Best, Rich said it. I think that Five Timers Club sketch was magical. It was so much fun. just when you thought you couldn't get one more person in the sketch, another person would show up, break through the wall. You get these great things. And like, I was just in heaven watching that one. So that was so much fun. We just spoke about the SNL for Trump. That would be probably my sleeper. I also want to point out another sketch, which is on March 8th. We had a cabinet meeting sketch between judges Trump and Elon as Musk. And I thought that, from the Lady Gaga episode, and I think Marcelo is Marco Rubio in that as well. And I want to point out that one in particular, because to me, that was the one that was interesting enough that I may take some nuggets from for season 51, which is we got some internal monologuing about, him as Trump being like, why am I doing this? Like, do I really feel this way? And I feel like that sort of second guessing of what he says out loud versus what goes on in his head was enough of a political viewpoint in terms of political sketch writing that they don't always hit on anymore. So again, I just want to like shout them out when they do things that are good. So for me, that is a sleeper cold open that I think is worth mentioning here. Let's jump over to the monologues. Let's talk about the ones where, we got a lot of different variations of monologues, a lot of stand-ups this season. When it came to the host for season 50, a lot of pressure on these hosts as they come out and talk to the audience. Kirstin, I want to start with you this time. I want to know from you what you think the best or favorite monologues were for season 50.
There are 4 that are memorable to me. In chronological order. This would be a bit of a sleeper, but this is like for super fans only. And it would be Michael Keaton, only because Andy Samberg got to put on the Beetlejuice costume and do Beetlejuice. If you've listened to the Seth Meyers Lonely Island podcast, you'll know very well that Andy Samberg is obsessed with his Beetlejuice impression. So that was fun, very selfishly, because we got to see him, live out his dream. I'm always a fan of Martin Short singing and, running around the studio, making out with Jimmy Fallon. And that was a really fun one. We probably figured he would do that, and he delivered. Dave Chappelle, controversial, but I'm a fan of his. Bill Burr stepped in when we expected Dave Chappelle, but then Dave Chappelle came post-election and once again delivered a very unifying monologue that I think he does really well. And lastly, Jack Black's I'm Back, because we had hyped this up and he understood the assignment. I'm back. Great writing, great energy. That energy he maintained for the entire show. And I think we were all excited about it and didn't need to hold our breath because we had high confidence that it was going to be fantastic. And he set that bar really high right from the start. So those are the 4 that stood out to me. Again, I can't choose a favorite.
Yeah, it's tough. Rachel, have you chosen a favorite, or are there other ones on your list you want to bring up?
I think I've chosen a favorite, but maybe there's 2 favorites, 2 different kinds of favorites. I actually really enjoyed, and I hope this isn't recency bias, but I loved Scarlett's. I thought it was a lovely way to honor the end of the milestone season. It was very sweet at times, and then it was very not sweet at times. I mean, just the fact that it was like just saying like Marcelo and Devin are friends, and that was just like there was nothing more there than just like a big virtual hug or an actual hug. And then I love that, I love all the meta stuff. So like when Chloe was like, I like a singing monologue, and Heidi said, I like audience questions. And then they did them both, making fun of Sarah's pants, having Bowen be able to say how he doesn't love playing JD Vance. And then, of course, I think because of the podcast, Ego saying that she had been in 300 sketches, and then having Longfellow come in and say he had only been in 4 was just obviously a highlight for me, being a huge Longfellow fan. And it was just it was a little jarring for me how it went from dismissing the 3 newbies to loving the other 4. So I wish there was a little bit more evenness there. I was like, hey, come on, give the newbies a little something here. But I just thought it was a very feel-good way to close out the season. My other favorite from a stand-up point was Nate Bargatze, who I'm saying his last name wrong, I know. I mean, the same way I am I just a little bit being backwards. I discovered John Mulaney through him hosting SNL. I discovered Nate through him hosting SNL last time and became obsessed with his stand-up. And I thought that the way he condensed his other jokes into this monologue was just so sharp. I talk about I can't go on DoorDash without thinking about this monologue and the need to double dash. I think he really picked very relatable elements. I took speech in college because it was a requirement for my communication degree. So there was just a lot of elements that I related to. And I just think he has such a deadpan delivery that was so perfect for this style of monologue. Oh my God, my ears is falling out. For him, that works so well in this context. So I really thought one of each, one that was very dedicated to the show, one that was very stand-up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those are all great picks. Rich, what about you?
So I'm going to start by being a little bit contrarian because I like that we have different opinions. 6 stand-ups, all returning champions, all have hosted the show before. And I thought for me, all 6 were disappointments compared to them, their monologues, either the first time they hosted or earlier in their career, or Shane Gillis, I think, maybe just not quite finding the rhythm for that particular room. So, I mean, Nate is hilarious. Mulaney's hilarious. But I do feel that what we saw this season was very self-assured, very talented stand-up comedians not putting in the same amount of work that they used to when they first started hosting the show, and they put together stand-up monologues that destroyed. I don't think there was a single stand-up monologue of the 6 that even came close to destroying the way that Chappelle used to do, the way that Chris Rock has done in the past. So for me, I'm hoping that next season we see new stand-ups booked, not returning champions, because I think that we've lost a little something. That said, a lot of fun in the monologues. You guys really covered it. I was surprised. I went into the Jack Black episode being a little bit more skeptical of Jack Black feeling like, God, I loved him when I was in my 20s, and now he feels like he's a kid show host. And coming out that monologue, that song, and I was like, oh, right. That is why Jack Black is here. That is why Jack Black earns his stripes. And so for me, that was probably my personal favorite. Maybe a little bit recency bias, but I liked a lot of the musical stuff. That one particularly stood out as fun.
I completely agree. I think that Jack Black monologue was my best monologue of the season. The energy that he brings to a show, it's very Belushi, Chris Farley-esque, something that the show just doesn't have anymore. And, he just brings that room where, I don't know, if you ever go to an event and you see a specialty act or a musician perform and they just are captivating, he had that thing of I just can't take my eyes off of you. And that's an amazing way to start the show. So for me, definitely my best. I think essential for me is Chappelle. I mean, broke his record for the longest monologue of all time, and he comes out there and just does his thing again to kick off the year. Was it as perfect as maybe some of his others? Probably not, but still, this was a very interesting thing to have him out there again and basically have carte blanche to do whatever he wants for 17 minutes. So you have to watch that one. Rich?
I'm going to push back on that, though. Say even that, because he got so much for the 17 minutes. If you took 6 minutes out of that monologue, it is objectively a way better monologue. And he knows that. So I feel like we're rewarding the wrong thing. It is notable. I don't actually think it was great television. That was just, just my opinion. Does it become
essential? Just in the context of the history of the show, though, does it become essential viewing if it is an 11-minute monologue?
I don't think it's essential as a 17-minute monologue. I would not want to say, I want to get someone excited about SNL, watch these 17 minutes on YouTube to get you excited, because I don't think people I know who don't know SNL would make it to the 17-minute mark where
that's fair.
I can show you early Chappelle and go, that was a work of art. That was an artist at the top of his game.
I agree, but there was something about watching it live that was holy shit, he's still going. And you just didn't know, is he just gonna go? Is this gonna be the show tonight? I guarantee you there was millions of people watching just being what am I are they gonna do sketches? Like, and that was what was cool about it too. So it's interesting.
Yes.
Then I will say sleeper. I have to also agree with you, Rachel. The Scarlett Johansson monologue. I know it was just last week, but still, really, really good way to end the season, and a beautiful way to end the season. I thought the singing was really fun. I love the meta aspect of it right after James goes in the audience. So I don't think you can ignore, just because it was so recent, how good of a monologue we had during our finale. So great stuff there from ScarJo. Let's go into live sketches. So huge category here. There's, like over 100 live sketches this season. So when you think about the options that we could pick here, I know we're going to throw out a ton. Rachel, let's start with you this time. Any live sketches you want to point out as your favorite?
Oh my gosh, this was the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, there were so many to choose from. I'm going to just name a few and then dig into the two that I came up with at the top. I love the traffic altercation, and I thought Ferry altercation was done really well, especially with Colin coming at the end. I was so shocked that he came that I didn't even realize it was him at first. Like, that's how unexpected it was to me. Shrek the musical, we've talked about in a previous podcast, which is kind of a sleeper to me, that every line was just really done well. I don't think I'd call it a huge standout, but I just really want to give it a huge honorable mention. I mean, again, something that got me into a big part of why I got into SNL so much was the Mulaney musicals. So Port Authority, Dwayne Reed, or whatever, or they call it Bus Milk. I guess there's two names to it. I go through Port Authority every day, and I often, not every day, when I used to commute every day, but that's how I get to the city. So I very much know the Dwayne Reed. So I enjoyed getting that very, very specific category of a shell. And then, of course, I'm a huge Broadway fan, so I love all of these. I wouldn't say it was my top Mulaney musical or even in the top half, but I was glad it happened. And of course, we're taking out the anniversary special because I probably would put that one in. Domingo was interesting to me because initially I wasn't a huge fan of it, but then it really grew on me as the fandom grew, and it made me feel like I was a bandwagoner. But I remember, like, the way I realized it was getting bigger than just that week was I was at, I think it was the New York City Marathon, and people were holding up Domingo signs. It was like days later. And I think that was like what made me realize, oh, this is something that's going to be huge. And obviously when Marcelo flew across to the Sabrina Carpenter concert, I think that really solidified how important that sketch was. And there's Domingo merch already, official NBC Domingo merch. So I think that really, really shows the pop culture reach of that character, and obviously has elevated Marcelo so much this season. What's that name? The election one on the Mulaney episode? I watched a lot. I thought that was such a clever one, with the double Tims, and I love Longfellow as a host. He just does such a great job with that. But my top ones are both from the Nate Bargatze episode. I was a big fan of Washington's Dream Part 1, and I thought Washington's Dream 2, it's hard to say which one's better, but I just appreciated it so much because they went to the words instead of the numbers, and I thought they did such a great job. Like, so often the second time around, you feel like they're just doing the leftover jokes, but I feel like this was like every single one was just, I mean, this is the type of sketch that I send to my mother and my mom sends to all her friends, but I also share with my 7-year-old niece who just is obsessed with it too. And I just feel like there's such a broad audience and everyone can relate to the ridiculousness of the American language, especially just like the cow, beef, pig, pork, and then just going chicken. That one stays. And like what's another good one? Like the Jeff, the right way and the stupid way. I think there was just so much humor in it. And the way, I think one of my favorite ways that they wrapped the bow really nicely was starting with the number 12 and calling it a dozen, and then later getting into the school years and then saying there's 12 school years and saying, oh, so a dozen? No. So like, I just thought that was so impeccably written. Obviously, this comes from Nate's mind, and I just clearly am a fan of Nate's humor. So I really thought that was probably one of my top ones. And the other one that was a top one for the season that I never thought I would call it one of my favorites, but when I went back and pulled out all the live sketches, I think this is one that I've watched a lot, is the water park one. I was I mean, clearly I've already fangirled up enough about Longfellow tonight, but like I was just immediately the biggest stage mom he didn't know or wanted to have when he joined the show. And I had gone back and watched all his stand-up and saw this joke and just was waiting for the day this would happen. And then when I was getting the reports of cut sketches from our friend Ellis, I was like, I saw Water Park early on and was like, oh my gosh, it almost made it. It almost made it. And I'm so glad it waited for Nate, because I think Nate had the exact right tone for this. I know there were some people that said that Jane's delivery was a little off, but I think we were still getting used to her there. Going back and watching it now, I think she was just perfect in it. I think that's what a teenage lifeguard would be like. Like, what do we do? Devin, I think the 4 characters were just perfect, like little kind of slight innuendos that covered different aspects of it. I love that Devin was just all in on it. And then I thought it ended really well with the photo. I think that was like just a perfect opportunity for Longfellow to show what he's capable of doing, and just executed so well with the right host.
Yeah, those are some amazing picks, Rachel. So thanks for that. Rich, what about you? How do you feel about the live sketches in season 50?
A lot of great sketches, and Rachel covered a bunch of them. Sure, I think for me, favorite was Washington's Dream for sure. The fact that that was one. As soon as they started it, my heart dropped, and I went, "Oh no, we're going to ruin a good thing." And it was like, nope.
Classic.
They just rose to the challenge. It was so great. And similarly, parking lot altercation, with Martin Short, I thought was just so fun. Melissa McCarthy, probably the best cameo of the season, in that it was not only great to see Melissa McCarthy, but she was just so funny. I'm just going to throw out just my sleepers. Calling Dad from the Bill Burr episode where they call their dads. It's amazing that in 50 years of doing SNL, no one ever thought of the moment where he calls Bill Burr playing the dad, and the dad says, "Oh, it's so great to hear from you. All right, I'll let you go now." And it was like such a it's so universal, and yet that was great. And then this is so crazy to say, from the Paul Mescal episode, the Capanelli's Italian restaurant commercial is when I went, oh, Ashley Padilla is so great. And it was just this sketch about how she improvises a pun about pasta, and Paul Mescal's character just gets madder and madder, and he was so good in that sketch, and it was so grounded. And then it gets super silly with Keaton coming at the end. So, but I mean, really, so many of the sketches Rachel said, I thought there were a lot of fun live sketches, and a lot of different types of live sketches that really hit this year. It wasn't like we just kept hitting the same note over and over again. I thought there was a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, there was so many sketches to talk about tonight. I'm not surprised that we have endless conversations, or that we could have endless conversations about them. Kirstin, any for you on your list that we didn't get to yet?
Well, I'm going to second everything that Rich and Rachel have said about George Washington too. Brilliant. Any Canadians will appreciate that in Canada, we pick and choose whatever system of measurement or naming convention happens to make sense for us, and we are all over the place. So there was a unique way for us to relate to that. My tops were, Devil Dog's Drop, which is the water slide one. I think Michael Longfellow is the sleeper. He is incredibly talented and can deliver. When he finds the lane, he is far ahead of the pack. And that, again, Rachel, you said it, like pairing that with Nate was chef's kiss perfect. That was absolutely a massive laugh out loud moment for me. Agree, car altercation, great cameo with Melissa McCarthy at the end. I mean, I love when the show surprises me that much or pulls the rug out that much, and I just absolutely lose it on the floor laughing. The other one that really, really tickled me was Ariana Grande as the competitive charades mom, Diane, with Bowen and Michael Longfellow as the couple, and the way that escalated, and how great a performer she actually is. it was a great highlight of that in this sketch, and she took it so seriously, with that, you know, mom wig, and then they're spinning the bodies around and they're chirping at each other. Absolutely a great rewatch. Some honorable mentions go to Dismukes as the bad lawyer. That to me is a sleeper with Paul Mescal. I think that one will stand the test of time. I really enjoyed Chalamet as the kind of that horrible stand-up routine he kept doing at the coffee shop with the soundtrack. Barista, thank you. Yep. I also love Jack Black, first play ever. I thought that was really clever and fun. You know, like, oh, I'll go get him. And so he just walks out. Everyone's reacting to the play. It seemed like such a simple concept that, you know, you had great writers attack and then fantastic players reenact. You know, kind of more of a rare one for, I'm sure, this group, but Dave Chappelle's Evacuation Alert, the escalation in that one with, I mean, the hidden family under the stairs, the French family, the, you know, the gun in the cupboard, like that. Amazing. Again, Longfellow. This is turning into a Longfellow celebration. And I will, even though it's recent, give a shout out to Scarlett Johansson's Victorian girl lunch, her black teeth, and all of the regurgitation of disgusting things that all those ladies were eating. That was really fun. I don't know that that's top of my list, but it gets a bit of an honorable mention because it was yummy in her tummy and it cracked me up. So there you go. Live sketches.
Yeah. So for me, my best live sketches of the season include that Evacuation Alert sketch from Chappelle. It was so well done, just really well written. I know it was written sort of like with the inspiration being the fires that were happening in California. But I still think it would live as a sketch that really works if you go back and watch it. And just, you know, the escalation of the family, I felt like that was vintage Dave Chappelle, like the one that we all wanted to see do the show. He was fully invested in that sketch. So that was a great one for me, along with the water park sketch that we talked about. That's another best live sketch for me. One we didn't mention was the long goodbye and rideable luggage sketch from the Lady Gaga episode, which I felt was amazing. It was so incredible to start the show that way and break format and have, you know, people riding luggage around the studio and switching from set to set. There was something about that episode that just felt magical for me. And I love that we had that there. The whole romantic scene, the stuff on the highway, like it just felt epic in the way that they did sketches in the 70s or the late 80s and early 90s, that they just don't do those things anymore. So really loved that one. For essential moments, I put Sabado Gigante as a sketch that I felt like is something that we should definitely bring up. Just having that like other flavor that, you know, Marcelo brings to the show and that the writers put together for this one was another part. I mean, it's no wonder that Nate's episode is so well regarded since there were so many interesting things there. Naturally, Domingo. I also think it would be important to think of the gallbladder surgery sketch that we got from the Chris Rock episode where Adam Sandler shows up under the sheet. Didn't love it as much at the time, but I think it's a good indication of like, what is season 50 all about? That's sort of like an alumni can pop up at any point. So, you know, that was something that I thought about. And here's my couple sleepers. Okay. So 3 that I don't think that you guys mentioned yet. One is the Baldman sketch from Bill Burr's episode. The fact that you got so many bald extras in a room together, just like huge round of applause like that. You know, you don't get that on any other TV show. So that was just incredible. The Birthday at Friendly sketch from the Gaga episode as well, where we get this satanic ritual happening, this Indiana Jones thing. Like that to me was absolutely hilarious, part of a great episode. And I also don't want to forget about the couples at a bar sketch that we saw from last week in Scarlett Johansson's episode, where you had Bad Bunny and Marcelo talking to each other in Spanish, and you get the whole subtitles and the whole, you know, sort of duo storyline of like Marcelo doesn't want to be with his girl, but then Bad Bunny sells him out. Those were also really good sleeper moments. So for me, those are my 9 that I was thinking about here. And I think we have a lot to choose from. And that's the fun of the show, right? Is that you don't even realize how much great stuff is in an SNL season until you go through it. So if we thought the live sketches were good, let's talk about the pre-tapes. A lot of great pre-tapes this season. Many different categories of pre-tapes. When you're coming into season 50, you're thinking we got Please Don't Destroy, maybe some music videos or stuff like that from the cast, but we got PDD, we got digital shorts from the Lonely Island. We had animated shorts. We had Dan Bula pre-tapes. They went all over the map with creativity with the pre-tapes this season. So, Rich, what were your best pre-tapes from season 50?
I'll pick one and then jump around because I have others, but I want to hear what everyone else is. Because I know the one that I would have picked if you just asked me without going back and watching, and I'll let someone else bring it up. Here's my sleeper pick that I can't believe how good it was, and it's not on anyone's list. Gladiator 2, the musical with Paul Mescal. If you go back and watch it, it's just so fun and so funny and so stupid that and there were so many good ones I can mention, but I want to start with that as like, boy, that mid-pack shows, in the season, there was a lot of funny going on there. And I thought Gladiator to the musical, it had Wicked, it just really was hitting so many pop culture moments, and he was so game. To me, I think that might be my favorite.
Wow, that's an interesting call. I definitely want to rewatch that one because it hit well that week, but Paul Mescal as a host maybe a little bit more forgettable. So as far as a sleeper hit, I think that's a good choice, Rich. Did you have any others, or that was your one that you're picking?
Well, I've got a couple more, but I think other people are going to say them. I'm going to save the big ones, but I will say I think that Buffalo Wild Wings was great with Bill Burr. Yeah. I thought that was really funny. And I mean, PDD always kills me. I like the skydiving thing. I think that was really cool. Good. But there was my sort of combo was the L'Oreal Paris Easy Run Mascara and Forever 31. I felt like you feel like smart women are writing smart comedy for smart women. So while I always think specificity, even if I don't understand some of the nuances of the jokes because I don't wear mascara, I am laughing harder because I just atmospherically, I know in my DNA how funny that is. I thought those two together as a piece were just fantastic and got out right when they should get out. It wasn't a second too long. So I thought those two were really great.
Kirstin, what about you? Any pre-tapes that you want us to jump into?
Oh, yeah. As I went through this all, I realized how much I actually loved a lot of the pre-tape content this season. So, hang on tight. The return of Andy with Sushi Glory Hole and Here I Go. I mean, it's like they were just waiting for the moment to splash back onto the scene with these two epic pre-tapes. Sushi Glory Hole is so stupid, but so amazing. The way they stage it, like the audition scene in either, depending on your age, Flashdance or Save the Last Dance. Hilarious. You got some cameos in there, but I wasn't even distracted by them because they actually did make great use of the current cast in that one. You had Chloe Fineman and Andrew, all sorts of people. And what a dumb concept, but they leaned in. And then Here I Go, you have Charli XCX acting like a cast member in a really well-written and catchy song. I also then loved, My Best Friend's House. I loved An Act of Kindness with Heidi and Keenan. He's homeless and she, decides to, again, share some kindness. She does all these things. It gets way out of control. Turns out she's missed the whole family holiday. He then thinks they're in a relationship. He steals her car. Hilarious. The White POTUS. Now, those are some cameos. Getting Beck back. The Trump sons. I mean, that to me was overshadowed by the gap tooth gate. But if you avoid that, then it's a brilliant take on the White Lotus. Seeing JHJ play Trump sitting on the edge of the bed and actually feeling solemn and hoping that there's like an actual person in there that might feel any type of anything around what's been going on was incredibly compelling, but hilarious. Goth Kid on Vacation. Great great pre-tape. There actually is a Goth Kids on Vacation Tumblr account from years ago. Go take a look at it. They're just melting in their makeup. So this really hit home for me. And it was very well done. You can tell that they had a brainstorming session where they thought of all of the various things that would affect that poor goth kid on vacation. Ordering from the dumb menu, sitting on the beach in the sand with your boots, dolphin shots, all of it. And then I also loved, again, this is a big Longfellow lovin', Planning New York. You know, it was another time when there was some just killer writing. And he and Bowen are in animated form describing their design for New York. Let's create a broad way. And this I will rewatch just as much. I think that possibly is a sleeper because I don't know that many people got as excited as I did about it, even the first time. But that to me is on the heels of this is going to be a hot take, Christmas time with the Jews, because it's such a classic New York take, universal in that at any time, anyone who either has been in New York or lives in New York realizes how ridiculous this is. Sure, most cities and towns realize they have some dumb planning. So, I realize I'm ranting at this point, but pre-tapes were stellar for me in season 50. And clearly there were a lot. Oh my gosh, I forgot about Beppo.
How could you forget?
Beppo! We forgot about him out in space, and I just forgot about Beppo. Fucking Beppo. Ow, ow, hot, hot, Beppo. Beppo. Heart Beppo. I'll leave it at that.
So many good ones. Rachel, let's head over to you.
I both love and I'm disappointed that Kirstin brought up my number one because I thought I had a big sleeper number one, but I loved Planning New York. I think that was just so brilliantly done. Having lived here for 20 years, I can't believe I never noticed that Broadway made triangles that were called squares. I mean, the fact that you made me realize that after all this time is so stupid that I never recognized it. But I also I posted something on Threads and it went super viral. So that's when I knew that one was more than a sleeper, that the Planning New York really speaks to New Yorkers and folks who live outside of it, just because you visit once and you're like, what's going on with these gridded streets, this mess of streets, and why is there no 4th Avenue? Well, there is kind of a 4th Avenue. But even, I also love that they took it beyond the map and went into the personality of New Yorkers staying in their own neighborhoods, because it's so true. But so I had a kind of a top 5, that being part of it, White POTUS being part of it, which we've talked a lot about already on the, because I did the hot take shows, so I won't go into that one. Goth Kid on Vacation was another of my favorites, but I thought I was again being Longfellow biased, so I'm glad to hear it was also on your list. Another one I love was Big Dumb Line. I thought that it's again very, I guess not just New York centric. Clearly, I stand in a lot of lines everywhere I go. I've stood in the standby line. I've stood in line for steak frites for 3 hours. I will stand in a line anywhere. So very relatable. But also, I happened to be with my nieces when this came out, and like I showed it to both of them, and like they were asking to see it again right away. I think it was also relatable to them. I was in a situation where we had to stand in a line, and somebody that I hadn't talked to SNL about brought this up. So I feel like it's also hitting the pop culture vocabulary. And the other of my top 5 was, I'm scrolling past, probably also a little recency bias, and perhaps because I cover travel, but I love Please Don't Destroy, but my favorite was First Class. I put this on Threads and it went crazy on Threads. I have been flying through New York. That is my home airport. I've flown 6 times so far safely through it.
So happy you're here.
I know. This could have gone a different way. So just like the specific nature of this, and like I think my favorite line in it was Martin asking if they were going to make the headline. I just thought that's so something he would think about in that moment, or somebody might think about in that moment, like, what's my legacy? Because I have 3 seconds to think about my legacy. I also loved how stupid and amazing it was that Scarlett regretted that Avengers didn't make more money. And just the way it still started in The Office, I still am a big fan of their Office sketches, but it started in Office, and when it reminded me a lot of another of my favorites, which was the Jenna Ortega road trip one. I felt like instead of a catchy little jingle, it was a rap, and I think it was a fun way to take that concept and turn it into something that's relevant for the news right now. And of course, Bad Bunny stepping into it. I again was not, I mean, I knew what Bad Bunny was, but I wasn't aware of his persona so much until he hosted. And I am obsessed with the way when he was Shrek, the way he played with the little light switch and said, "We could." And I just think he's so good at these subtle little lines, and the way he delivered everything when he was in the control tower, especially what color is your plane? It was just so, he just is such a secret comedian. Like, he needs to be on SNL more as a host. I just think he's a secret weapon when it comes to the comedy world. And then the only thing I had mixed feelings about was you can do anything if you put your mind to at the very end. I didn't love the ending, but everything else I just thought was perfect in that pre-tape. And another one that I really love too, also very recent, is I was a huge fan of Bowen Straight, and I loved Bowen Still Straight. Again, because of all the meta in there and throwing Colin in there, Colin's my SNL brother, was so sweet. The fact that Bowen says to Colin, "Excited to watch you grow," was just so silly, since he's been there like 3 times as long as Bowen has. And then Bowen saying to Scarlett, "Thanks for inventing AI." There was a lot of like other topics pulled in there. Also, I love that they're billing our favorite guy as creepy Longfellow. I feel like they're really trying to brand him more to prepare him for a bigger role, hopefully in season 51, which we'll get to, I'm sure, later. And even the very first line, which was such a throwaway, but where Heidi said, "I just found out there's a second Kansas City." I thought that was so, I mean, we know that she's such a big fan of the Chiefs, and I interviewed her about the Kansas City for Travel and Leisure, so I was excited that she said that. But I just thought that was a great little way in. That was also very meta. And so they did go beat for beat. There were times I thought Scarlett was actually playing Sydney Sweeney, playing the role of Bowen Straight, because the way she had a very Sydney-ish look at one point. And then just a couple others that I loved were where'd they go? Sorry, what also mentioned Forever 31, Gladiator the Musical, Here I Go. And this was technically a cut for time sketch, I think, the PDD Mean Cute, which I think might have been actually my favorite if it was on air.
Yeah, doesn't count because it wasn't, but still.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So those are all, like I said, all really great picks. I'll just get this off the top. For me, I mentioned this many times in the podcast. Having the Lonely Island back with the digital shorts meant so much to me. When you like walk by a house and someone's cooking something and it smells like home and you just feel good. Like, that was me watching Sushi Glory Hole. I just was like, this felt everything that it was supposed to, all the nostalgia and the feels of season 50. So I love that. Here I Go, obviously a banger. Got to mention My Best Friend's House as well. Just the turn in that sketch was so brilliantly done. The fact that they let it go so long without revealing what was going on there, and just the basically incentivizing you to go back and rewatch the sketch for Easter eggs, I think was a really great way to introduce us to those midnight matinees. So very excited about that. I think the essential pre-tape of the season will be the White POTUS, for not only the controversy that arose from it, but also the brilliant way that it merged current day politics with the show that everyone can't stop talking about. It was just so well done. Here's a couple that were not mentioned by you guys, some commercials. And again, all sort of in 2025. And it's very interesting because we talked for so long about how the death of the SNL commercial, but we had a couple of good ones this season. Jack Black's Flaming Hot Preparation H, where you see a host just like take over. Like, that was great. Then how about Medcast, where we just need to give men a reason to go to the doctors, so we're going to have them podcast about what's going on with them. Really, really smart and well done. The edible arrangements one that we had with Longfellow, just taking over that moment and having that whole thing with his mom, I thought that was really great. And I'll even shout out Shane Gillis's Couple of Beers. I thought that was really great as well, where you had that moment of just like, all right, well, whenever you need it, a couple of beers in a can, and like the lower third on that, like there was everything that was really well done about these commercials this season. Makes me excited to see if they're going to continue to give us some fun commercials next season, even though people don't really watch commercials anymore. They at least understand the concept. So I'm happy with that.
John, when you said commercials, I thought you were going to also mention Herbistopper from the towards the end of the John Hamm sketch, where you have herpes if you're rock climbing within an interracial group, and just great meta comedy on that too.
It's a good one. I love that they're at least trying this again. So, I really felt like they got away from it for too long. Let's head over to Weekend Update. So, Update, I certainly thought we would be having more conversations about the future of Update now. We're going to table those until we know what's going on for the future. But I thought Colin Jost and Michael Che were absolutely on fire this season. They came out swinging for the 50th, whether it's their last season or not. Certainly felt like they had a great one in them. We're going to aim more towards the correspondence and things that happen on Update beyond just the typical jokes. But let me ask you, Kirstin, what were your favorite Update moments from season 50?
It's somewhat recent, but because it felt so unique, it was Miss Eggy. Is that what she's calling herself?
Yeah.
And it was the first one when clearly a fine was set to the network. I love a standout moment like that. That to me is a big one. Ashley doing Joanne's. That's a big memorable moment for me. Heidi is consistent with some of her characters. It's funny though, because none necessarily jumps out. I'm sure someone's going to mention one. I'm going to get really excited, but I think just off the top of my head, like which ones were incredibly memorable. It's Ego. It's Ashley. It's Mudang was cute. Bowen doing his thing as he always does. Those are the big ones. I think someone's going to mention them. Please, someone else go first, because I know I'm going to get excited, but those are the ones that, sorry. Someone just said Mikey and the Spider. 1000% Mikey and the Spider. 100%. Like the physical comedy that we love so much on this show that usually was coming from a Chris Farley or someone, Mikey leaned into 1000%. Spider is great. Yes.
Rachel, how about you? Any Update moments you want to talk about?
I feel like the one I watched the most on repeat was two guys dressed as doctors with again Longfellow and Marcelo. I feel like they came in together, but we haven't seen them together a lot, and it was really lovely to see them interact. I thought they were a great pair. I believe Colin wrote that, and I think he's really gotten to know the two of them so well. It just felt like a really well done.
Cut, Rachel. So I think we're gonna have to.
Wait, it wasn't on air?
I think we're gonna have to put the buzzer on that one and say
I'm so good at loving cut. Okay, then
say that millions of our podcast listeners have no idea what you're talking about. So
okay,
anything else?
Oops. Okay. I can't believe I'm just going to keep on going on a Longfellow love fest here then, because I did think two of the other ones I had on my list were the Real ID and TikTok, both that came from him. I thought there were just great lines in both of them that were very relevant to the news of the moment. Obviously, neither ended up being exactly just about those subjects as always, but I thought they were dropping hints at the end of Real ID with the how much time do you have, no more time between Longfellow and Colin. Clearly, that's a big question mark we'll talk about later. With the TikTok one, I think that the way that he started physically trying to scroll past Che was kind of a fun moment. And then like, what do I do during a movie? Like, it's just so all of us right now, I think, or at least I'm like that too. So I feel like it just hit very relevant topics right now. I also loved Marcelo and Jane together. I thought they were the unlikely couple. Both times they were on, I was glad they brought them back. I thought both of them nailed those roles. And I really enjoyed Jane's segment, especially her first party one. I thought for that being an early episode and being so different, having the keyboard, she really nailed it.
Yeah, definitely. Rich, what about you? How do you feel about Weekend Update in season 50?
Yeah, I thought, you guys hit all the big ones. I thought I was going to get Mikey Day in Under the Wire because it was so different and so unexpected. It was very much if anyone's a fan of old Dane Cook, that's kind of a Dane Cook piece. I don't think he stole it. I just think two people thought of the same thing. But yes, I like Marcelo and Jane as the couple that shouldn't be together. I thought that was great. The one that I think for me, the sleeper one that no one has mentioned that I just thought was so fun and so fearless was Andrew Dismukes with the puppet of his dad. It was so hilarious and cringy and awkward and meta. That to me was just like, that to me is quintessential Dismukes and what I love about him. And that to me was so much fun, but a lot of fun stuff there.
Yeah, that was fantastic stuff that we got from Andrew. Obviously, for me, Miss Eggy has to be the essential one. I think that I'd be cheating a little bit if I said this, but I couldn't help but talk about the joke swap we got at the holidays, where we had the point to Scarlett Johansson standing out of the hall while Colin has to talk about some crazy stuff. So that one was a really essential moment for me. Ashley Padilla doing the Joanne from Joanne's Fabrics. That was the breakout moment for me with Ashley, where I'm like, totally like, you're like not just our star, but you're like becoming the star. And I felt that was so good. We talked about Mikey with the spiderweb, but Mikey as Lord Gaga was so good as well. That we talked, like, he never shows up at the desk, and he just hit like a couple home runs towards the end of the season. It's like, where was this for so many years, Mikey? We haven't seen you do this in 5 or 6 years. Come on the desk. So yeah, just really good stuff here from Weekend Update. All right, let's talk about our greatest or favorite host from the season. So we're going to separate host and episode into two different categories here. If you have to pick a host that you're like, they crushed it this season, Rachel, who would be that favorite host for you?
Oh, that's a tough little extra you just put on it to separate the host from the episode, because I was very much tying them to the episode and thinking about how I heard some podcast where Seth Meyers was saying that you kind of have to, that there's never a great episode. There's always great sketches in every episode and always some sleepers in every, or not sleeper hits, but some bombs in every
I disagree
episode.
with the great Seth Meyers on that, but yes.
But I mean, I love Mulaney as a host. I think obviously he knows the show inside and out and just does a great job and knows how to host the show. I wouldn't say this is my favorite of his 6. It might even be in the bottom, not the very bottom one, but maybe one of my least favorite of his 6. I, again, am going to hand this to Nate Bargatze. I think he's really coming in from stand-up and coming in as host and not quite knowing how to fit into that scene. I feel like he's really found his place in just 2 episodes. I also thought Charli XCX, being a new first-time host, really did a great job. I know we've talked about on the previously her blending in so well, and I think she really has a future doing more of this, hopefully. And Timothee just doing both roles. I know it may not have been as standout of an episode as we may have thought, but just for the fact that he sang as sang Dylan's songs, I think gives him a little extra credit.
Rich, any hosts for you that stand out as your favorite hosts of season 50?
I'm going to pull, I'm going to be so shameless. My God, even though we didn't talk about many of the white sketches as all-time season best, I think Jon Hamm is just so strong. And he's so strong in all of the sketches he was in. There were a lot of sketches that didn't make this list tonight, but it was a very solid episode. So I'm torn between him, the two other than alumni, the 2 people from the season that I would say in another world easily could have been cast members is Jon Hamm and Quinta Brunson. And I don't think I laughed as much at the Quinta Brunson episode pound for pound, but she easily could have been a breakout star of the show. So I'm going to say neither of those would be up for best episode of the season for me, but as far as just hosting duties, they both, I think, were standout for me.
Agreed. And that's why I like making the distinction. Kirstin, for you, any hosts stand out?
A lot of agreement here. Quinta Brunson could have been a cast member, and I am just such a huge fan of her commitment to character on both of the times she's hosted. So Quinta, Ariana Grande is clutch. And then I also, Nate and Charli like really leaned in. Like Nate has found a lane here on the show, great, and Charli just seems game for anything. So, those are 4. But Quinta, I can't get enough of. More Quinta.
I agree. I mean, she's fantastic. I think Nate and Mulaney both did great jobs as hosts in the first half of the season. Ariana was fantastic as well. I think Jack Black is probably the standout host of the season for me. Just to see a guy who hasn't been back in 20 years and just to know that he still got it. It was, a top 3 episode for the season probably for me. I'm not saying it's number 1, but as a host, I just think he just dominated that episode and just really brought that energy to it that I was looking for from him. So that would definitely be my favorite host of the season. Gaga probably right after that, and I'm definitely going to talk about Gaga's episode when we get to that. So Rich, let me send it back to you for your favorite episodes of season 50.
I mean, there was it was interesting going back and, as everyone said, watching sketches to try to beat recency bias and going, boy, there was a lot of good episodes. But I'm not going to say anything groundbreaking given the praise we've given it tonight. But I mean, I think that Nate Bargatze, there's not a clunker in the entire 90 minutes. I think it was just, as you said, Sabago Gigante closing with Coach Allen. Like there was just everything was good, and he was so great. So I'm going to go Nate. That episode 2.
All right, Kirstin, favorite episode of the season?
Ariana Grande, followed by Nate.
Okay, why Ariana?
Let me go back to my notes. Ariana Grande. We had charades, which everyone knows I love. We had Domingo. That was the first Domingo, and that's a big one. We had the Jennifer Coolidge impression with Chloe Fineman, also classic. We had Castrati, Maya, and Andy showing up to cameo in the Voice of an Angel sketch. We had Celine Dion, the UFC pre-tape. Like, again, like you said with Nate, they really weren't clunky. Like, it was a great episode, and she was game also. So she got the slight edge on Nate for me on that one.
Okay,
Rachel. You're showing my age. I cannot process Domingo. To me, that will be the Californians of this generation. I know other people like it,
but I appreciate
I don't even get it. I just stare at it, and I'm like, how is this funny? But that's what I love about the show.
Even at the 50th, you felt that way?
I could not believe. I mean, I thought it only made the 50th for the fan service of the next generation. No, that is one of those sketches. As soon as it starts, give me a pad and paper, and I can write the entire sketch out. Beat for beat, I almost know almost every. I think I even predicted Bad Bunny would show up, like because of Domingo, and that he was it. So, but I love other people love it. But for me, it astounds me.
Yeah, it started to win me over. Definitely did not like that first one, but it took time, and it will probably be, as we said on the By the Number show last week, on the DVD cover of this season, that first sketch. Rachel, what about you? Any episodes that you would like to point out as your favorites for the season?
I really thought I was going to bring up some underdog, but I'm kind of impressed we're all on the same page. I thought the Nate episode, really every single one. I mean, even the golf tournament pre-tape was pretty great as well. I've said that to friends and family who love golf, and it's just the detail of it, the covering up of the sponsorship. It's pretty ridiculously amazing. And the other one, I think from the episode we haven't mentioned, is the Mile High Burger Challenge. That was also just like physical humor and some great lines in there as well. So I really think that one was almost, if not every single sketch and pre-tape on that episode. And that's where Jane was, I believe that was also the Jane first party song. So I think overall that was just a great episode. Sushi Glory Hole was that episode. It really was just one hit after another.
Yeah, it was a great episode. Absolutely. I think for me, when I think about my favorite episodes from the seasons, I often go back to like the dopamine hit that I just got from watching it. Like there's just something about watching a great episode of Saturday Night Live that you feel the high as it's going on. And like that was me during 4 episodes this season. Nate Bargatze's episode, Marty Short's episode, Lady Gaga's, and Jack Black. Those four for me, I think, are in a category of their own of the top tier episodes of the season. I think Marty's lack of involvement in the episode does take away a little bit for me, and which is why I think that there's a clear top three in Gaga, Jack Black, Nate Bargatze, whatever order you want to put that in. But those to me are the standouts. And I think that when we're headed towards this countdown we're going to be doing all summer of the top 50 episodes of all time, and you're looking at 1,000 episodes, I think that like, if I was ever going to consider a season 50 episode, I would squint and start to think about those. So for me, those are my favorites of the season. All right. So every Monday on our roundtables all season long, we ask you for your MVP of the week. This time on social media, we asked the listeners for their cast MVP of the season. So I'm going to ask you guys what you think the listeners voted for, who you think the listeners voted for as their season 50 cast MVP. So Rich, who do you think won that this season?
I'm amazingly bad at this. I'm going to guess that the audience picked, this is so hard. I'm going to say Bowen, Ashley, and you know what? I'm gonna and Sarah.
Bowen, Ashley, Sarah. Okay. All right. Kirstin, who do you think the audience chose as their MVPs for season 50?
I wish you would narrow this down for us.
Okay, you have 17 cast members to choose from. That's it.
Oh my gosh, thanks. That's helpful. I think Marcelo's got to be up there because of everything we've talked about. There's merch, Domingo, Sabrina Carpenter. I think real fans of the show will think Ashley for sure. We all see something there. But you know what? No, Marcelo. There you go. There's my answer.
Okay, Rachel.
I'm going to double down and go with Marcelo too. I think above the others, but I'll throw Ego in there too. I feel like with Miss Eggy, she had a great moment, and Sarah. But I do feel like we are a very pro Longfellow crowd here, so I do feel like he could be in the mix as well as Ashley and Bowen. Did I even say Bowen? And of course, Colin and Che had such a great season. I'm going to name all 17 at this point.
Yeah. I think you're a fan of SNL. So let me bring up the top 5 MVP vote getters for season 50 MVP as voted by you on our social media at the SNL Network. So with 21.8% of the vote, Marcelo Hernandez was voted as the MVP of season 50. Obviously, Domingo, Sabado Gante, many moments throughout the season, Marcelo was a big part of. So his growth is only rising. We'll be very curious to see what happens with him as he moves on in the cast. Ego Wodem, 19.1% of the vote. So Miss Eggy being very recent as a huge thing for her. She's had some good moments this season. So very happy for Ego for getting the vote here. Sarah Sherman becomes an incredible utility player this season, all over the show in sketches, 13.9% of the vote. Andrew Dismukes and James Austin Johnson get with 7.4% of the vote. Obviously, we talked about Andrew. He was in the most sketches this season. So, you know, that to me shows how much the show is relying on him. And clearly James is a huge part of SNL Future, playing the current president and being all over and invested into the show. I think that there's, you know, the bottom here, the Sarah, Andrew, James, I think they're going to be a part of the show for a long time. Marcella's clearly becoming a breakout star, and Ego continues to show that whenever she does get some time, she crushes. So those are the top 5. You mentioned Ashley Padilla. Ashley Padilla came in 6th place in the vote, so right behind there. So, you know, for a rookie to be so close to the MVP of the season, naturally, I think she gets some votes there, followed by Jost and Bowen would be next up on the list. So a lot of good options to choose from here for season 50. All right. That will close the book on SNL season 50 for this podcast. All of, you know, we're still going to do our By the Number show, but this was a ton of fun to go through all of the different moments from this season. Believe it or not, there will be an SNL season 51 coming to you in just a few months. So let's do our first look ahead to season 51, what we think the show might lean towards, any predictions, anything you want to talk about when it comes to season 51, Rich Tackenberg, and hopefully you will be back here talking it through with us.
I mean, you alluded to it before. The biggest question is going to be weekend update. I mean, that's going to be you said it. I think we've all alluded to it. the jokes that they told for 20 episodes, 21, including the special, were just at times the highlight of the show. They were so great. But that is the question. So to me, that's going to be the big narrative. And if one leaves, I'm going to guess that both leave. And then who do you replace? Do you replace them with a cast member, or do you do a casting call and bring in new stand-up comedians? So that's going to be the spot that I'm going to be watching. I would love it if whoever decides to move on, we don't replace them and just get that cast smaller. My dream is to see cast members have to play out of position. Like when we saw Mikey Day do the spider, it was like, oh, Mikey has that move to do the guy walk into a spider web. That's where you get stars. That's how stars are made. When Will Ferrell has to play the president of the United States, that's how a star is made. So I would love that. I have zero expectation that will happen. People will leave. They'll bring in 3, 4, 32 new featured players, hoping to find the next star. So I don't expect that'll change. But Weekend Update will be where I'll watch.
Kirstin, what are you thinking about when you think that season 50 is on the horizon? Season 51. Right.
I have more specific things. I think there are people that I would love to see host. I think we're going to see like a Pedro Pascal back again, especially with those arms. Put him in a tank top, objectification. Glenn Powell, while we're on it. Quinta, I see her becoming someone who shows up frequently. Iowa Debris, I hope I'm saying her name right. Also, let's get some more. I see Adam Driver making it into the 5-Timers Club. Regardless of whether he has anything to promote or not, he becomes like the Christopher Walken, like just like a kind of wackadoodle, but epic host. I have been saying this entire season that I want Doechii to be a musical guest, so I'm manifesting it and conjuring it. I'd love to see the return of John Goodman, because Hot Off Righteous Gemstones was just ended. We all need to be reminded of his legacy at the show. 51 seems like a great time. My wild card is Danny McBride while I'm on Righteous. I just think he is such a talented writer that, much like a Nate Bargatze, who just has, a real aptitude for character development and the way that the script serves those characters, I think there could be something really interesting there. And then Cecily, as soon as she's ready, we are waiting for you. You come and you host the show, and we all get really excited. So I think there's, I guess in summary, is a mix of kind of legend status plus some new blood in there. It's really a mix. It's like old and new. I think there are so many people that we clearly recognize are fantastic at being a part of this show, and that others we kind of have an eye for that deserve a place on this show. And I want to see that all happen.
Rachel, what about you? What are you excited about when you think about season 51?
Well, like Rachel, of course, I think Weekend Update is definitely where all eyes are at. I was just so convinced the way that they were building up so much Jost in the last few episodes that I thought there was this one image they posted on SNL social media stories, on IG stories, that had an exit sign. And I was so sure that was a sign, literally a sign. So I feel like it makes sense that you wouldn't want us to be waiting the whole summer to do any sort of handover in the fall. Or was that hint of him wanting to take over for Lauren? Like, is there something there? I kind of, a little bit of a wild card, hope that Please Don't Destroy will get a bigger role in some way. I feel like they've been popping up here and there. Hopefully they'll become more involved. I'd love to see more clippable segments for the generation I'm not part of, the Gen Z audience. I think they've been doing more of that, but leaning in even more, giving Jane more time, and whoever they do bring on. Getting on my usual diversity soapbox, I hope that new cast members are more diverse. I hope they will have less controversial hosts, to have 3 controversial hosts that have very specific a racist history, to have actual flat out anti-Asian remarks this season in the monologue was a definite disappointment to me. To have Gillis, Burr, and Burr. Even Mulaney had a little bit of an anti-Asian controversy after his monologue. I hope there'll be more. I mean, again, I've gone on about this, about how important it was to me personally when Bowen came on. So I hope there'll be more inclusion. And a little bit of a hot take. I don't usually talk about stories I tried pitching that never got picked up, but I was very adamant. I wanted this headline. I tried pitching this to no less than 6 outlets and nobody responded. I got one rejection. I wanted the big headline to be that the best SNL oh my God, I'm gonna start all over. The best SNL 50 sketches were actually aired on Wednesdays, because I think this year's promos were all so brilliantly done. Every single one was a great highlight. Like, it was like your first peek at how the hosts would interact with the cast. Lady Gaga sitting there singing about Heidi and Dismukes. There were so many amazing promos. They went all in on the soap opera one. The last one with Scarlett was just like, I mean, there were so many amazing things for the fans as well as for the general public. And those promos don't get that much airtime unless, I mean, not that many eyeballs unless you happen to see it on social media or on air. So I just really think that the promos were a great highlight of the season. I hope they'll continue to be so next year.
Yeah, the Goggins one and Scarlett's as well were fantastic. Kirstin, you want to jump in on something?
I was going to say, I actually had a note on even Gene Smart's. They were showing highlights from all the seasons, because this was clearly the launch to season 50. They were showing all these highlights, but they weren't doing it in like the, schmaltzy way. They were interrupting her. She was like, and then it would cue again. She's like, stop interrupting me. And so like they made it a whole bit. They were like, we got to show all this great stuff. We need to remind people who for some reason have forgotten all the legacy of the show, but they just tied it in so well. So I think they started that. I love that you recognized it. They started that right off the top, that it's a great place for some of that comedic gold that doesn't make it on the show to make it into all of this social media content that helps promote the show, for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks for bringing that up. I mean, season 50 was a wild ride. Like I said at the start of the show, the beginning feels like forever ago, but also I've been so immersed in it. So coming out the other side, I'm really excited about the future of the show. I think we're all going to be waiting on bated breath to see who's coming back and who's not. And we would have hoped to get those answers by now. But of course, like, that's what we're here for, right? If something happens during the summer, something breaks, like, we'll be live to talk about it and we'll break it down. So of course we'll get those answers as we go further into the summer. I am very excited to see how a regular season of Saturday Night Live would work with this cast or an adjacent version of this cast, because I really feel like in season 48, they were cooking. Like, they had a good thing going. And season 49 kind of impacted at the start by that writers and actors strike, where they didn't get like a normal summer and time off. And then season 50 very overshadowed by everything that's been going on. So season 51 feels like a very return to normal season. And I think those are the types of seasons where you could sort of tell like who's going to make it or not on the show. So I'm interested to see, does this become a season that really gets lumped in with 48 through 50, or it will start to build its own thing and we'll feel like it's the next new chapter? So those are the questions I'm thinking about. Of course, we will be here to cover it all. So excited to be here next season for that podcasting journey that we're going to embark on together. And we are not done with wrapping up our season 50 coverage, because I will be back on Wednesday night with Bill Kenny and Mike Murray, where we will do this, but through numbers. So if you're interested in the data of SNL 50, this is the show for you. It is a marathon show. If you thought we had fun tonight, we're going to be live probably for 3 hours on Wednesday, going through every single cast member's stat line, talking about them and their potential future at the show. So that will be our By the Number show on Wednesday. On Thursday, we have another edition of SNL Stories with Tim Kazurinsky, a great cast member from the 80s that if you haven't heard from him in a while, you'll really enjoy this one. So was joined by James Stevens and Andrew Dick for that one. So it'll be a great one. If you missed our SNL Stories with Fred Armisen, that one is available now. That one was a blast. Just love Fred. Just incredible to get to talk to him for over an hour about Saturday Night Live. So that one's available in the archives. In this spot next Monday, we will have our feedback show. So people are signing up already for time slots for a feedback show next Monday. The patrons really appreciate all of you. If you want to sign up for a time slot, you have up until Friday, this Friday, to sign up. So you can sign up at patreon.com/the SNL network to join us on the show. Ask any questions you want about season 50, season 51. We can talk through anything that you want us to next Monday night here on the show. And then, of course, we will then turn to our summer series, which will last through June, from June all the way through to September, where we will count down the 50 greatest episodes in SNL history. And the poll for that will be out later this week on social media. So stay tuned at the SNL network on all social platforms. And you could subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify to never miss anything going on here. If you enjoyed the conversation tonight, please leave us a comment. Let us know your thoughts and your favorite sketches. You can also give us a thumbs up on the YouTube video. And I just really want to thank everyone for hanging out with us every Monday throughout the SNL season. These roundtables are my favorites to do because it's just really great to have these in-depth conversations about what these episodes mean. Were they really good? Were they maybe bad? I mean, that's the fun of these. And the panelists that joined us throughout the season, just top-notch commentary. So appreciate you all. Rich, can't believe it's been 5 seasons we've been doing this together, but I'm just like, I'm still blown away that I get to talk SNL with you. So thank you for joining me.
Super fun. Thank you for having me. This is great. The best. Yes.
Anything you would like to say to listeners as we wrap up tonight?
I mean, I say this every time we do this, and I'll be quick. I mean, that, we think about, there was so much hype about season 51, season 50. The star of the season was season 50. SNL is still, for me, it's timeless. I mean, I am looking forward to the beginning of season 51 the same way I look forward to the beginning of season 50, because there's something so magical about this show that they haven't broken. How is it that this show is still, it's not held by conventions of the past that hold it back. It's not trying too hard to go into the future and take too many chances and mess that doesn't work. There's just nothing else like it in pop culture. So it's so special. And the fact that I get to hang out with people and we can debate Domingo, where other people would look at me and go, who cares? It's a skit. No, it's not a skit. It's a sketch. That's my last thing.
Appreciate you, Rich. Kirstin, I forgot to mention, one of my favorite moments of season 50 was getting to have brunch with you after I went to Toronto to watch the premiere of Saturday Night. So that was a lot of fun as well. It's been great getting to talk SNL with you all season long. Anything you would like to say as we wrap up our coverage of the season?
Oh, this is so amazing. This community is great. I'm reminded of how great it is every time I try to show a sketch to someone who's not as big a fan as we are, and they kind of lose some focus. And I'm like, where are my people? They would get it. So I have so much appreciation for this entire crew and everyone who participates in the fan base, because it truly is amazing to talk about something that's really just so joyous and makes us all laugh. Like, it is really a beautiful thing. So I wrap this season feeling appreciative of everyone, and I'm happy that basically we get to talk about how much fun we had and how much we laughed. That's a beautiful thing. So again, Jon, thank you so much for bringing this whole community together, and all of the leadership and organization you have around this, and all the people behind you that help with this. Because it's really awesome for me personally. And I'm sure I speak for many other folks in this community when I share my appreciation for everything that you and all of the people put into this. So looking forward to the chats over the summer, but also season 51.
Thanks, Kirstin. Really appreciate that. That's very nice. Rachel, so great to get to talk SNL with you this season, and appreciate all your thoughts here tonight. Anything you would like to say as we say goodbye?
Oh, this is also bittersweet. I went to one SNL taping as standby line because I really wanted to see John Mulaney's Five Timers Club, and I just never expected that one and done situation to become all this. The fact that you guys have welcomed me into this podcasting community, the fact that the standby line has become like a second family. I am just like, I never thought I would be here, and to be accepted and to be able to talk, like Kirstin said, about such a fun pop culture topic every week is just such a I mean, just it's been such a highlight of my life that I never thought I would be able to embrace, especially because I just thought SNL was always so too cool for me. I would never understand it truly. I can't believe I'm here. I'm so grateful to you, Jon, for bringing us all together. Everyone behind the scenes, like Kirstin said, I know we have people booking us every week, doing the graphics. Such an amazing team that just every element of this comes together so beautifully. And and just following everyone's comments today has been so wonderful and so supportive. So thank you very much for all following along. And honestly, like I feel like the only reason I was chosen to be on the red carpet is because of all this. And so truly, that was just such a memorable, truly once in a lifetime opportunity. And I'm so, so grateful.
Well, we're really happy to have you. And thank you for shutting out our team. I mean, our producers that we have behind the scenes just work so hard on all the shows that we do, all the social media content. So just, I could not do this without all of you. So really appreciate everyone here at the SNN, our entire podcasting crew. And we're going to do a lot more celebrating about this season and next season, all the fun things we have coming up here. So stay tuned to the podcast for all of that. Thanks for everyone in the chat for hanging out with us each and every Monday night. And thank you to latenighter.com for being our presenting partner for the show here. A lot of great stuff that is happening over at Late Nighter, especially as we head towards the summer. So thanks to Rich and Kirstin and Rachel for joining us here on the show tonight. On behalf of everyone at the Saturday Night Network, my name is Jon Schneider, and we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.